Hi, I'm Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game, Nucleum. Nucleum is a new game that's along the lines of Power Grid meets Brass. I played it last night with two other players, so a total of 3 players. The teach and setup took around 45 minutes, and then after that, the game took around 2 hours, and then another 15 minutes to clean it up. So all in all, about a little over 3 hours, maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes. And it was a really interesting game because it's a fairly most of the actions are fairly easy to understand. There's one action that is fairly difficult, I think, to understand until you've actually taken that action and maybe even played through most of the game. And oftentimes when I learn a new game and I don't understand an action, I just focus on the other stuff. And so I focused on everything except for this core element of the game. This is a game about building routes and bringing energy to those routes, similar to Power Grid and Brass. And I ignored that part. I just did everything else. I engaged with a really interesting action system. I put down tracks on the board. I went after achievements and milestones, and I still had a lot of fun with it. So even ignoring like the core element of the game, I still had fun. I was also competitive. I didn't win. I finished in last place, but I wasn't that far off. Second place. Anyway, that was my first experience playing Nucleum. And my favorite mechanism, I'm going to have to show you on screen here, are these tiles. The game almost completely avoids the use of cards. There are 2 reference cards. Instead, it uses tiles for a number of different purposes. And really, these tiles are multi-purpose tiles that are designed in a really interesting way. What you're seeing here are, I believe these are the 5 tiles that you start the game with. Each player has slightly different tiles. But yeah, these look like the 5 tiles you're starting the game with. And I won't go into what all these actions mean, but what you're seeing here are icons that are mostly either actions or track advancements, or sometimes they are one-time bonuses. I don't think we see any one-time bonuses here, but most of these are saying actions, sometimes actions with a slight modifier, a cost a decrease, or a little boost to the power here. This is a track advancement. So on your turn, one of the things you can do is take one of these tiles from your supply, place it in the furthest to the leftmost slot on your player mat, and take both actions in either order. And so that's what you're doing on many turns of the game. You are simply choosing one of these tiles, placing it on your mat, and taking ideally both of these actions in either order. This by itself is a neat little mechanism, kind of a top-bottom mechanism. We've seen it in some other games. Scythe has it. Gloomhaven has something kind of similar to it, although you're using 2 cards in Gloomhaven. So this by itself is really cool. Added to it, so I'm going to add some layers to this. One of the layers added to it is that there is a supply, and I'll see if I can find it in these photos. There's a supply of these action tiles where you can buy more of them. You can gain more of them. So actually this action right here, I didn't find a photo of it to show you, but this action right here says gain another action tile. So you can just gain more actions, more combinations of actions that you can then use for the rest of the game. So that's one of the interesting elements, that you can gain more action combinations. That in itself is fun. To add another layer to this, though, is you're placing these tiles above your income track. This photo shows it pretty well here. You have 3 different income tracks here. And what these tiles are saying is that even if your income is well past the last tile here, you can't gain that income. And let me see if I can find it. Here's a slightly better example here. So you can see here, if this player right now were to gain income, they would gain like in this much money, this many workers, and this many victory points. However, you can see at the top of the mat here, there aren't any action tiles. The action tiles might be way over here to the left off screen here. But because the action tiles don't come all the way up to meet these income benefits, you're only gaining income as high as your highest action tile. This is to prevent you from working on income really well, and then for the rest of the game, just gaining income over and over again, one turn after another, taking a recharge turn to gain that income. So it's a really nice system where it balances the number of actions that you need to take to benefit from the income that you've already earned in the game. Add another layer onto this. One of the other things you can do with these tiles is place them on the board. So instead of using them to take an action, you can get rid of them permanently, which hurts a little bit if you really like this combination of actions, and you can put them on the board. And this is where I need another picture. Here's the action where you gain new action tiles. And let's see if you can find a picture of the map. Here we go. This map doesn't show it all that well, but what you may have seen on these tiles are colors. So you see an orange, you see green, you see multicolor, it's a wild, you see white, and you see purple. They correspond to these areas on the board. So one of the things I can do with these tiles, instead of using it for an action, I can place it on the board, and if the color matches the thing that I'm touching, whether it's a city or an adjacent tile, and again, I don't have any examples here because all these tiles are face down, but if I do that, the color matching gives me that benefit. So instead of placing this this tile on my board, instead of placing this tile on my board to gain both of these actions, I can place it on the board itself to gain. If I match up purple, I gain the energized action. If I match up the green with either a green tile or a green city, then I gain the upgrade benefit here. So it's as if you are taking the action, but you're also progressing your routes in the game, which feels really good. The only loss there is that you no longer get to use that tile as an action for the rest of the game. But really, I found throughout the game, we didn't take that many recharge turns. So it's not like when I would gain an action that I would have it for many, many reuses over the rest of the game. I would have it for maybe 1 or 2 uses for the game from then on. Once you complete a route with these tiles, you flip them over, and that's when they start to look like this. They just look like tracks. But I really love the combination of these 3 elements. The fact that you have these dual paired actions that are unique, that you have a way to get new actions, and that you can use those action tiles, either to actually gain the actions on your player mat and reuse them after you recharge, or to place them on the board itself. I think this is a really, really cool action system that uses the elegance of these tiny tiles. Yeah, those are my thoughts on my favorite mechanism in Nucleum. Actually, let me throw one other thing in here because I thought one other system that I interacted with was really clever, and those were the objective tiles. Let's see if I can find one really quick. This is the objective tile area. I don't know if I'll be able to find them, but yeah, just a quick mention to the objective tiles. Oftentimes in games when you gain like a mission or an objective to pursue, like one of my objectives was have 7 upgrade tiles, something like that. All right, it was 8. Have 8 upgrade tiles. Oftentimes you gain that objective and it kind of just sits in your supply somewhere until you achieve it. But it feels a little bit sometimes like a slightly dead turn because you haven't really progressed yourself in the game. You've just claimed an objective that you might be able to gain later in the game. In this game, and again, I can't find a photo of it, but on the right side of, actually, here's one right here. On the right side of your player mat are 4 slots, and that's where you insert these objective tiles. And when you gain the tile, you insert it next to one of those slots, and at that moment, you gain the benefit. So here's, I'm looking at my screen. I'm not showing it to you right here. This is the slot right here. You gain this benefit. You gain 1 Nucleum. So it actually feels good at that moment because not only are you getting an objective that you can then pursue, but you're slotting it into a place where you gain an instant benefit, which feels really good. And it actually gives you an even stronger incentive to pursue that objective because not only are you getting the points or other benefits on that objective tile when you complete it, but you also get to free up this space that you can use again to place another objective tile in that slot. So that feels good as well. So I like that combination for objective tiles in the game that gives you a little bit more. Doesn't feel like a dead turn whenever you gain an objective tile, and especially doesn't feel like a dead turn because of this action system where you're actually taking one other action on your turn typically as well. Anyway, those are my thoughts on my favorite mechanisms in Nucleum. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below if you've played it or you've played a similar game that has a mechanism like those that I've described here. Thanks.